Have you ever gone to church guilty? Psalm 130 was a going to church song, a song of ascents, that teaches guilty sinners to come to God for forgiveness, trusting that Jesus will come to redeem us. The author writes Psalm 130 from the depths. The word he uses in verse 1 paints a stronger picture than simply feeling down. The writer is drowning. Compare the word he uses with Psalm 51, verse 10, for example. The psalm is a song of desperation. But unlike so many lamentation psalms, no external enemy is identified. The writer, as John Owen says, cries out under the weight and waves of his sins. Our troubles also are complex, but spiritual people are not ignorant of their sin and the role that their sins play in their persistence in the depths. Believers judge themselves first and learn that we do sometimes drown in the guilt of our own iniquities. To use a different metaphor from the end of the psalm, Israel has sold himself into slavery and is desperate for redemption, verses 7 and 8. Often enslaved people enter bondage as victims of terrible crimes, but the captive writer cites no injustice. He makes no claims of innocence. Instead, he asks God to be attentive to the voice of his pleas for mercy, verse 2. Eerily, the author cries and waits, verses 5 and 6. The penitent in Israel waited for the final redemption, the final shedding of blood, the perfect sacrifice. Psalm 130 anticipates the gift of full and free forgiveness that Jesus would bring to a hurting world. Here is the believer's affirmation from verse 4. With you, Lord, there is forgiveness. God's holiness means that he takes sin seriously. God's love, cited in verse 7, means that he's willing to share the burden of our sin. And the gift of Jesus is the surest proof of God's love. 1 John 3:16 says, by this we know love, that he laid down his life for us. The psalmist wrote in verse 6, my soul waits for the Lord. But at the coming of Jesus, Mary could sing, my soul magnifies the Lord. Luke 1:46. Why the difference? Because Jesus is the payment for God's plenteous redemption. Psalm 130, verse 7. The psalm promises redemption for those in the depths. Even darkness, even for believers, darkness can linger. But the light of the world has come to redeem God's Israel from all their iniquities. This truth should lead us to fear God, honoring with our lips and our lives God's holiness and graciousness. Psalm 130. A song of ascents. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. O Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to the voice of my pleas for mercy. If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, O Lord, who could stand? But with you there is forgiveness, that you may be feared. I wait for the Lord, my soul waits, and in his word I hope. My soul waits for the Lord more than watchmen for the morning, more than watchmen for the morning. O Israel, hope in the Lord, for with the Lord there is steadfast love, and with him is plentiful redemption, and he will redeem Israel from all his iniquities.